Morning, everyone. Hope you can all hear me and see me. Let me know in the comments section of the live stream if anything's amiss, but it looks fine to me. And also let me know if especially if the audio is good, if I'm kind of peaking or distorting, or if I'm just loud and clear. I'll pop out the chat. If anyone wants to ask me a question, make sure you add a whole bunch of emojis, 2 or 3 brightly colored ones before your question on the right. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are around the world. As usual, we're discussing the recent videos. Related ones again, which I always like to do, and I'm happy if it works out that way, but I try to do it as much as I can intentionally. 2 related topics, 2 related videos that we can discuss during the stream. When they give you ultimatums, which shows a lot, it's basically saying, you know, I matter much more than you. Now, look, there's a case to be made that we should have self-respect and self-esteem, and we shouldn't let someone pull us around, and we should think of ourselves. But when one person's just thinking of themselves 100% of the time and you don't matter, you're just a vehicle, you're a mule with a cart pulling along her life, when you don't matter at all, that's a problem. Okay, pop out chat. Hi to the regulars. Hey Donna, hey David, Ted. It's a beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon in Melbourne. All right. I'll get onto the video until you guys come up with a few questions of your own. And if you don't worry. I think I can blab well enough on my own. Anyway, for the nerds who are interested, the microphone I'm using today is the Samsung Q9U. Camera is a Canon EOS R, streaming through Streamlabs OBS. And the lens on my camera is a Sigma 24mm f1.4. And for some of you, that will mean something, and to some, it's like, who cares? Get on with talking about the subject. So basically, the title of this video is when you just sit there and take it, when you're, you know, there's related topics like being an overly nice guy, not thinking of yourself. All of those things swim in the same soup. All of those things should make you wake up and look at what's going on in the situation. Are you serving her and the relationship, or is it a mutual one? You know, I like to kind of remind myself, and you know, when I'm speaking to you guys in my videos or in my streams, I'm really speaking to myself and sharpening myself and making sure in life in general, but particularly with other people, because people on autopilot, there's a great majority of people out there that just use everyone. And if you don't object, they use you, and they think they're being nice people. I mean, some of us might not know when we're using other people, but I would say if you're more self-reflective, you're aware if you're being unfair. You're aware of the relationship going on between you and something else, simply because the topics we're discussing and we find important and essential in life is that we forgot ourselves in the equation, and it's just us dealing with the outside world, whether it's a pretty girl, whether it's pursuing money or the approval of your parents or status or something, where you will be seen and loved because of all of these external validating points. And it becomes important when you kind of remember, oh, well, I can fix all my problems if I just remember that I exist in this equation. And quite simply is that you make sure that you're dancing and that you're not just following. You're not being led on a collar. You're actually part of the dance with the person. And so the topic of this stream that relates to the 2 videos I made, where you don't think much of yourself, and you could find yourself initially attracted to a girl because subconsciously the one thing that links you to her is, we both see me in the same way. She feels safe that you're obsequious and you're soft and you don't object to anything and you're just an easygoing guy that says yes to everything. She feels safe and good. At least she's going to have some peace, but she's not going to like it for very long because none of you comes out. You're just reflecting her. And I've made videos where it's as bad as when a woman likes us and she just reflects us and she doesn't show who she is in the honeymoon period. And look, it's hard when you're on autopilot because you're almost anesthetized by this person. You're drunk on this person going, you got love heart-shaped eyes. And you just smile every time you're around them and you just say yes, yes, yes. You resist the word no. You resist the feeling no. So it's very easy to just feel good and agree with everything. It's kind of, I have a great time with her. Why would I say no? Why would I introduce distance? Why would I introduce a potential friction? Everything's so good. But if you're not introducing a no when it's honest, when you feel a little bit of a twinge and it's like, I don't agree with that, but I'll just be quiet or I won't disagree in a polite way, but you just won't be part of the relationship that has any negativity that's introduced, That's a hard thing, especially if you guys who have been lonely for a while, when you've just met the wrong person after the wrong person after the wrong person. And then finally there's someone who's different and refreshing and you're not paying attention to what the refreshing aspect might be. You can't just say, I think I found the one because she's not a bunch of crap like most of them out there, or she's ill-fitting, she's not compatible to me. Just because she's not like the train wrecks out there doesn't make her for you. That's a very low bar. Let me just check the comment section. If anyone's putting comments down that my audio or video. Just the guy says, you're saying there's no case scenario in which the one giving the ultimatum also has the moral high ground. I'd agree with things come to the point it's better to break up. Look, I think if you get to the point where it's an ultimatum, if you voiced your concern openly and you haven't held it back and it gets to the point of becoming an ultimatum, that's a problem. You should have spoken up earlier. But then it's not really an ultimatum when it comes to the point where you've discussed this and it's not going anywhere, it's not getting any better, or the person refuses to acknowledge your concerns or what your problems constantly are. But if you stay quiet and it comes out as the dam breaking kind of ultimatum that either it goes this way or I can't stand it anymore, I'm leaving, you don't want to do that. In the same way, you don't appreciate ultimatums out of nowhere. Because although in most cases, I can't speak today, in most cases, breakups don't come out of nowhere. For the ones where they do come out of nowhere, where the guys really didn't expect it, that was an unfair ultimatum because it should have been discussed. It should have been something that the person saw coming. And so when it happens, he doesn't feel so blindsided by it. And I would say the same with us. Don't keep it in and keep your opinions to yourself. It's your relationship too. You should always be voicing it. And if the other person, this is where you can feel the freest in a relationship, where you can just say no politely. You don't have to be an a-hole, but you can say no, you can say yes, you can say I don't want to do this, I do want to do that, I'll do that next time, give me time, wait a while. You're always factoring yourself in. And because you can say no, just like you can say no to your family and friends, you still love them, you're not walking on eggshells when you say no to them. It's just normal to object to something you don't like. And if you can sort of train yourself to be that same way on dates and with lovers, then you will feel the most relaxed and free because you're being yourself. But if you censor yourself so everything's smiley, because in your own life, stuff isn't smiley. It's not always happy. There's a lot of neutrality. There's a lot of happiness. And then sometimes there's sadness. But if you try and artificially make it all Hollywood smiles without any neutrality, without it dropping below an 8 or a 10, that's stupid. I would say realistically, we should always aim for equilibrium, being at the midpoint somewhere, because that's where life is, somewhere in the mid-range. Depending on who you are and what your life is like, your midpoint could be a 6, for some people a 5 or a 4. But if you learn to have a realistic baseline of where life is comfortable and good and sustainable for you to kind of keep that state, we get pulled apart psychologically because we go through roller coasters. I think what's healthiest is that we stop doing the roller coaster thing on our own or in relationships. Stop trying to keep the high sustainable when it's impossible. Unless you're sociopathic or you don't care about people, or you're a manic depressive where you're always down here. But sort of a normal baseline, you should mistrust or see it as temporary times where it's like you're on a high. Appreciate it. You're going to get surprises and really high moments, but realize where home is, where the baseline is. Don't try and live on holiday, as I often say. Cynical Optimist says, hey human, I've been curious if you've heard of Adlerian psychology. Adler, is it Joseph Adler? Yeah, I've heard of him. Read bits and pieces, haven't really read anything from cover to cover on him. But from memory, I get a positive feeling about him. So I can't remember details, but Adlerian psychology, Joseph Adler, I think he was a psychologist. Yeah, I actually think, from memory, what I've read, the little I've read from Adler, is actually pretty good. He's spot on with a few things. Yeah, that's a feeling I'm getting. Again, I'm trusting my instinct, but I have definitely read bits and pieces of him. There's a bit called The Courage to Be Disliked that explains this psychology. I'm going to write that down. It's one of those things that I hear, like names that I've heard or I've written down or I've wanted to absorb more of, and I just haven't gotten around to because kind of life gets in the way, but sort of life progresses and it kind of gets in your rear vision mirror. What's it called again? The Courage to Be Disliked. I think I remember where I heard of Adler and was recommended him. I think it was through one of what's his name's videos, Richard Grannon's videos. I think he's mentioned Adler quite a bit, and then I kind of looked him up, and he was pretty astute. So I must look him up again. Yeah, David P says, we often think the high is a baseline and the real baseline is depression. No. Yeah, we've been taught to think of Hollywood lifestyle as everyone's out there having fun on Instagram. They got like perfect teeth, perfect bodies. Everyone's having fun traveling. And look at you, you loser. You just live in a house and you go to the supermarket. But then when you look at the videos of these supposedly perfect influencers out there, they have these videos where they just break down and cry and they've got mascara coming down their eyes. And it's like, what was the act? What was the video that you put out yesterday was like, hey guys, hashtag loving life. And then today you're like breaking down and saying, yeah, what? Were you lying? That's what it sounds like. Was it all an act? It seems like it. So don't believe the hype. Like I'm pretty much myself in these videos as much as possible, but there's a sheen of presentation over it, like from the audio to how I sort of put my videos together and stuff. These streams are probably more like my personality. My videos that I present are probably further away from the natural me like this. The less polished, the less edited me. I mean, the message is still me, but don't believe the perfection you see and then judge yourself on it. Like most of them, if you spent an afternoon with them in their life, if you had to sleep over for a week at one of these, perfect influencers' homes that you think is a celebrity that you really put yourself down in comparison to, you would actually see, man, I want to go back home. My life's pretty great compared to this train wreck, to their complaining, to their disorganized life, their insecurities and their need for validation, all this kind of stuff. Feral Android says, the problem with being alone, it's hard to apply sunscreen to the middle of my back. I feel ya. I feel ya. Donna says, it's too nice to do a stream today. I know, Donna. But also, there's the rest of the day after this morning that I can go out and enjoy some sunshine too, which I recommend to all of you guys. Whenever there's sun out, even if it's just going for a walk or going to the supermarket or doing something, an errand, it's better than just sort of sitting inside. What do they say about sort of 10 or 15 minutes of sunshine? The effects on your mood, and not just sort of chemically, vitamin D, but just your mood. All right, let me see. Are there any other questions? Alfred Adler, not Joseph Adler. Apologies. All right. Now, related to the recent videos, basically, when you just sit there and take it, which is a kind of an umbrella that references both of these videos. She gives you an ultimatum. What do? Are you aware of the ultimatum, or are you on the obsequious autopilot of, I feel uncomfortable. What are the words I can say to make this uncomfortable feeling go away? And it's usually, yes, dear, I'm sorry, or you go quiet, or you just put up with it and you let her lead the relationship forward even more. And you're more and more distanced from enjoying yourself in the relationship because it's not your world anymore. Does your relationship feel like your world? Or is it all couple and her, and you're not there? The only time you get any semblance of you is if you catch up with friends, or when she's not home, or when you're not around her. If that's the only time you can breathe, then I would really, really encourage you to rip that Band-Aid off and be honest with yourself and say what you should say and do what you have every right to do as a fair person in a relationship. Guys are too nice when, they find girls they like, especially that honeymoon period. They lock themselves into that. They've promised themselves into that, and then they don't change. Whereas women find it easy to change. Changing for women is like the weather changing. It's just natural, and they can't understand why you have a problem with it. It's a natural occurrence, and perhaps it is. But a man's sense of loyalty and a man's world is that once you've locked yourself into something, you better have a damn good reason, and there are consequences. And so once you're locked into something, a promise, the way you feel, you love something, it's very hard to just throw it away. When a man has a car he loves, not just another car, but a car he absolutely loves, it's very hard for him to get rid of it. How many guys have their fathers pass on a car to their, grandfathers, to fathers, to sons? So it's very hard there's a lot of sentimentality with men, and there's a lot of honor in what he's promised himself to, but not so much with most women. And, you could say it's not completely bad with women, because we need to know if something's changed, we should have every right to unlock ourselves from the promise, because if the promise isn't being kept on the other end, then the promise is void. But we kind of think, well, I'm going to be an upstanding guy. I'm going to be better than her or better than the business or something that voids the contract. Look, everyone can pat me on the back and everyone can say I was in the right. They will, but you suffer in life. They don't. All you get is when you're buried, on your tombstone it said, Human was a honorable guy that kept his word. Great. But you suffered most of your life. No one thinks badly of you. And it's not necessarily that you need people to think well of you, but you need to feel well about your own life. You can't sort of be suffering there and later on thinking, well, they'll be sorry, or I will never be in the wrong. They will be. But you stay there almost proving the point that they are wrong. I know I've done that sometimes when I didn't speak up in relationships when I should have. And so I convinced myself that staying quiet was like, see, I'm going to remember this. And then later on, I'm going to accumulate all these moments where I never said anything, but I'm going to remember them. And then at the end, I'm going to let her have it. And there are going to be stories where if anyone asks me later on, how did it end? What happened? And I'll be like, well, let me tell you the story. And I'll tell them all these chronological points where I didn't say anything. I was a nice guy. And then I had every right to walk away or their relationship ending. And they'll say, well, yeah, you did the right thing. Look how nice you were. You never said anything. Well, the point is I should have. And so should you, I would humbly offer. Again, do what you want. But I think if you want to be honest and self-reflective, and especially if you don't want to waste time, if you want your life to be better, you know it's true. We can convince ourselves of a lot of stuff we don't really believe in, but it's convenient to sort of believe in, an excuse, especially if the excuse is pretty reasonable, Smoke all your life. I may not get lung cancer. May not. Maybe like George Burns, smoke cigars all your life and live to his 90s. Yeah. Feral Android says, like beer commercials where everyone is outside having a blast when in reality everyone is just hungover. Yeah. Sean C., how you going? Just a guy, Tomb of Arminius. How are you guys? Yeah, make sure you hit the like button. Comment, interact with YouTube. It likes you interacting, thumbing up, thumb down if you want. Comment, join, do whatever you want. They like you clicking. AC says, just stop falling in love. Well, that's a hard one where, you can remove yourselves from situations where that possibility is less and less. You can stop dating and all that stuff. But you also don't want to cut yourself off from feeling joy and happiness in areas like, things you love, not just falling in love with people. But I want to enjoy life. I don't just want to exist in a sterile, academically safe environment where things are very calm, but it's my world is in black and white. I do want color in my world, and I agree. Don't be reckless. I'm not advocating for anyone to be reckless, but I'm also advocating for people to have a bit more bravery where it's warranted. Where when you look at the situation, the only thing that's really stopping you is you're just afraid. And if you just did it, if you kind of really look at it, and the worst that could happen is something fairly mild, like your feelings get hurt or something, but the rewards for a very big probability of actually having something good happen or achieving something is like really high, if you just get over the little, awkward band-aid ripping, uncomfortable initial feeling, then I say do it if it's so recoverable that it's laughable, that you're just afraid of, that habit of safety of like not wanting to do that thing. Yeah, likes are way down. Hit the like button, guys, as David mentioned. Yeah, it's funny. It does not matter with my channel, it seems. I've been flagged in some way. I don't know. I've been put into a category. I know that. And it doesn't matter how many videos or how little videos, or, I'll get more views on one video, less on another. It just goes up and down. But my numbers, like my channel hasn't moved in like a year and a bit. It's just really fun. Not funny, but interesting. Christopher says, Human, how can some men get back with an ex knowing they've been with other men? Well, they were probably with other men before you met them the first time as well. What's the difference? I know there's a difference, you've been with her and you get back and she's been with other people. I suppose it differs from guy to guy. It differs on what a sore spot for you is, because it's not the same for everyone. And this is the thing with the one-size-fits-all dating advice. Do this, don't do this. You shouldn't be affected by this because this is the reality. Well, one person just can't help it. One person's arachnophobic, and you just can't understand why they have a fear of spiders. So, yeah, we need to understand where the one size can fit all, and then when there's the gray area, and when there's a particular thing where you just need a certain standard with a woman, and if it's outside that standard, I'm sorry, I just can't. Bob Ballard says, I think that people should eat better food, though. That plays a big part. I agree. Your sleep, your diet, and how you think and speak. Those kind of things really kind of dance and affect each other. You don't talk well. You don't talk well to yourself, especially if you've got a hamster wheel in your head. That's a horror film. That's kind of like a condescending, talking down to you superego. Then you're not going to sleep well. You're going to be anxious. Your cortisol levels are going to be up. So how you think and speak, how you eat, your diet, exercise, all of those things dance in a coordination with each other. But look, how do you get back with an ex knowing they've been with other men? Some people like myself would say, why would you want to go back with an ex? For me, on one hand, I have had people in my life say, well, Human, you stayed too long with an ex. Perhaps. But I stayed long to squeeze every drop of doubt and try and work on things where when it breaks up, and it takes a truck to sort of pull me back to her. Like, it takes a lot of convincing. And I've never, like, the most I've ever done in the past, I think, is maybe catch up for a coffee with one ex, and that was a serious ex. And then as soon as I did, it was like, no. It was like touching a sticky doorknob. It was like, I'm not coming back here. But other people are different. I know for myself, one benefit for staying as long as I do to really work and try and see if there's anything I can do from every angle in an objective way. And when there's kind of a realization that, oh, no, this isn't working, this is going to end, then later on I can sleep well and I have fewer regrets. Yeah, you can miss them initially, but when you think about the reasons why you broke up, they're logical reasons. The question mark of, when people say, I miss them, I can't even remember what we were fighting about. And I think, woo, really? You can't remember why you fought and what the reasons were that caused a committed, serious love affair, like you love the person. You can't remember. I think you're willfully wanting to forget and ignore, or think it's not as big a deal as it was. We were young and dumb and stupid, and what were we fighting about anyway? It's like, oh yeah, that cheating and that abuse, and like, yeah, I was overthinking that. Thanks for the compliment, Travis. I appreciate it. Yeah, I didn't have time for a midweek stream this week. They're the hardest to find time for. But I'd rather get to my videos first. I'll always do at least one stream, which is usually on the weekend. They're kind of easier to get to. But midweek are the hardest, work, obligations. I don't live off YouTube. Nadine says, yeah, once something doesn't work out, walk away, never look back. People rarely change, so if it didn't work out the first time, it almost certainly never will. Look, I'd like to remain objective and think, say you broke up with someone and you really, you think about them from time to time, you kind of think they were a nice person, but it didn't work out when you were like in your early 20s, and you bump into them in your 40s, say. And sort of you've both matured, you've both learnt, and you still connect with the personality that made you connect when you were 20s. It's kind of just pure, that friendship, trust. They're really your kind of person. There's a familiarity. And also, you can actually talk maturely and what you've learnt, and you can remain friends and actually see that this person doesn't have the things that pulled you apart, maybe immaturity or whatever. Maybe objectively, I can see that happening. When enough time has lapsed and the person, the way they speak and they act, they're really reflective and they own up to their faults. But if neither of you are owning up to any of the reality that caused you to break up, and you just want to relive old time's sake, in effect, you want to turn the clock back and have a second chance from that point, being the same people, then no. Have some objectivity. It's very hard, and it's almost impossible for most people, because the reason you go on dates is to feel good emotionally. So it's very hard to sort of juggle those two balls of emotion and logic, that sort of stoicism with enjoying sort of the natural feelings that come with being a human being. The reasons why you go, you don't go on a date. You don't want to sleep with someone for stoic reasons. They're about emotion. They're about feelings. You might be analyzing, I want to have kids later maybe, but in that moment, the reason why you feel good is feelings. So it's very hard to kind of reconcile the two and juggle the two and make those two things dance in concert with each other. But we need to, without being neurotic about it. And so the poll I gave was, if we don't think very much of ourselves, do we stay with women who don't think much of us either, and then call that love? That was in relation to this video, the earlier one I did this week. No, actually this one. What am I saying? The last one, where we find most guys find confident, outgoing women, the ones we watch in PORN, we find them intimidating and alien. They're not really us. They're a fantasy. They're a holiday. And so we connect with someone who is also maybe doesn't think much of us. They reflect our attitude, our cowering attitude. And also they don't think much of us either. And we think, oh, great, I don't think much of myself either. So when you have low self-esteem, I think it's very easy to be taken advantage of someone who just has a little bit more self-esteem than you, let alone someone who has a lot, who is a completely different personality, who's an extrovert compared to your introversion. She's outgoing and you really are a homebody. You can just be taken for a ride, in essence, to escape from who you are. Like, you don't care what she calls you, how she treats you, how she doesn't respect you, as long as she's with you. The proof to you that a relationship is actually working is that she's not leaving. And that to me is really, really a low bar. There's nothing you're there for. It's your only barometer is that you believe what everyone says about relationships being hard, and it is. It feels uncomfortable. All women are like this, and she's acting like all women. But underlying all of it, it's because of what you're accepting, what you're not saying. And yeah, I'm just beating a dead horse at this point, but I think anyone who watches my channel kind of can realize those points where all the things that you leave unsaid because of fear of saying it to someone that you like, fear of saying it to someone or something, is that sort of one pocket of joy in your miserable or neutral life. That's the only thing that's got sunshine in it. And so why would you introduce darkness in the form of no into that sort of sunshine? Keep that area sunshine, no matter how you feel or how much of a doormat you are. Let her use you. That's what people with low self-esteem think, because, hey, it's better than nothing. And that's a very, very low bar. Because kind of logically, guys would actually think that. They think, well, something's better than nothing. Logically, yes. Is it though? Pain is something. I'd rather have nothing than pain. Because when I think about nothing, I think about neutrality, calmness. I'd rather have calmness, consistent calmness. I don't need excitement. I don't. I mistrust excitement because it's fleeting. It's like an emotion. I mistrust sadness or anger because, again, it's an emotion. High roller coaster feeling, low roller coaster feeling. I really mistrust them. They're fleeting. Don't trust it. Roman says, morning human, I'm in a relationship with a man and even same-sex relationships have problems. Yeah. I've often wondered though, like, I'd say, Roman, that you don't experience a lot of the problems that, say, myself and a lot of hetero guys experience with the natural biological incompatibility with women. Like, at least I've always suspected, and from the gay guys I've spoken to, there's a baseline of understanding male nature, and that kind of isn't used as blackmail. Like, when your male partner, they can't kind of gaslight you as much because you're both men. Whereas a lot of women gaslight men from a woman's point of view, and they hide behind, well, you just don't get it because you're a guy, or man up, or whatever. Whereas in a gay relationship, you can't really use those gaslighting tactics. So I've always kind of thought, and from what I've been told by gay people in my life, is that a lot of that is a lot more clearer, and you don't have to deal with that BS. I'm sure there's a lot of normal BS that's got to do with simply being in a relationship and, you know, butting heads over stuff. But yeah, I've often joked that if I was gay, my channel probably wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have as much to say. I wouldn't be trying to work out as much. AC says, human, why keep talking about relationships when they are toxic for men? Because you can't pretend that a lot of guys aren't going through this. Most guys still want women. See, this is the thing where I think guys get blindsided, where they really feel wrecked. Is, you know that it's a natural thing that you can sort of stoically come through it and feel better. But I think it's one of those things that you don't need to talk about all the time. You don't. I find it interesting. I like writing and producing stories, and I like stories with people. I love movies and things like that, and all of that revolves around believability of characters. So I love the social aspect. I love social dynamics of people, psychology. I just find those interesting. And I find the practice of it interesting when I interact or I observe it in my own life, whether it's platonic with family and friends or whether it's in a relationship. You don't have to, but there's a lot of guys that are pretending they don't need to talk about it. They think, okay, I worked it out, I feel good. And then they kind of, put it away like an old notebook on the shelf. And they said, I've worked it out. I've written that book, done. And then they go through life and they get hit by it like a semi-truck. Because for me, unless you know you've severed that cord, if you've actually completely severed the cord of talking about women or being kind of so stoic about like, yeah, I don't need women. Why do you keep talking about it, human? For me, it's like, I wouldn't even be watching channels like this. I would have no interest. Because there's other things that I don't care about anymore. I'm either over them or I have zero interest. And I don't watch those things because they have no interest for me. I used to ride a skateboard when I was very young. I don't watch skateboard videos. I don't look at skateboard stuff. Zero interest. When it crosses my path in life, it's kind of, oh, nostalgia. I remember that. Cool. For a split second, barely registers a 1 out of 10 for me, but in terms of nostalgia. But other stuff in conversation that gets me excited, that gets me interested, one can't deny that it is important. It's important in some way. If you watch this content, like for instance, I don't like watching content where people are fighting and arguing because I don't like it in my life. It's not entertaining for me. Like I know where my interests lie. I know where I still need to exercise and work on things because those muscles need to be exercised so I don't slip. I want to keep my life hygienic. I want to be conscious and as healthy both in mind and body as I can in my life. I want to be as responsible as I can. And for me, I don't know about you guys, some guys that are too stoic, I know that I have to exercise this stuff non-neurotically, of course. Like I'm not saying to be completely obsessed about it, but to sort of exercise it like your health, like going to the gym to keep your body strong. Because I know I've got a lot of weaknesses in this area that are only strong if I exercise them and keep them exercised. If I say I've done that, I'm over it. Just by going through life, walking through life, dealing with people, women in the workplace, my natural attraction still to females out there, my still liking the companionship of a woman. I can't deny it. I can't just kind of Tony Robbins myself in the mirror every day and say, you don't like women. Women are nothing. Women are nothing. Women are nothing. And then you still enjoy watching, looking at porn or you appreciate a beautiful female figure naturally. I think we need to be honest to some degree. And like my honesty is that I find it both interesting. I like writing about this stuff, both fictionally in, my other life, my other hobby. I enjoy drawing and writing stories and illustrating and, drawing beautiful women. I haven't done that for a while, but sort of the artistic side. So I know in life where beauty lies and women still hold a lot of beauty to me. But I also realize what we all talk about here, practically, politically, socially, all that sort of stuff. So I'm very well aware of it. So there's a heavy, heavy dose of reality in my appreciation for the aesthetics of women and what I want to get out of life, right? So I know I need to temper all of that sort of childish enthusiasm for the aesthetic beauty of both women and life with the reality of what we have to deal with. I get it. But I refuse to kind of live in a black and white world of sterility. I need a lot of aesthetic beauty, but I will, through these conversations and the videos I make, I'm always tempering where I can enjoy the aesthetic beauty of life and to what degree. Does that kind of make sense? Anyway, Mr. Highway, how are you, man? Yes, sunrise here a couple of hours ago. It's 10:45 a.m. in the morning. And in terms of this poll, some of the responses were from V8 Rumble. He says, it is true that most people get exactly what they think they deserve and end up with the worst option they're willing to tolerate. And yeah, I agree. I was that guy for a long time. And this is why, again, self-reflection. If you're aware of your Achilles heel, you are submitting to your Achilles heel by thinking you're more stoic than what you are. Yeah, forget women. Who cares? Yeah, that's the answer. While you still know that you've got low self-esteem. And so what happens is you're vulnerable to women. Most women have a inflated, egotistical, high self-esteem about themselves. They think they're 9s and 10s when they're 3s. And that's being generous. Illustrious 18 said, exactly. A man will get everything he's willing to settle for within reason, of course. Benjamin S. says, Tom Likas said it best. He said, the secret to looking successful and actually being successful is to love yourself more than anything or anyone. That is true. Loving yourself doesn't necessarily mean that you treat others badly. It means that you love yourself more than enough to not allow anyone to treat you badly. Well put. It's not having a solipsistic, narcissistic or sociopathic view of yourself where everyone is a neck to step on to get to where you want and you're just cold and unfeeling. You don't just use people for your own pleasure, you relate to people. But yeah, you have to. Most guys don't even factor themselves in. This is the last 2 videos this week were about that kind of self-esteem notion that we see each other as, not each other, but we see ourselves as invisible. Everything outside of a man pays attention to, because a man's a human doing by nature. We get great satisfaction in doing things, building things, protecting people, helping people, raising children, protecting our sons, protecting our wives and girlfriends and mothers. We feel great. Conversely, and like women enjoy the opposite. They rely being taken care of. They rely things being done to them. We enjoy doing things to other things, not to ourselves. We don't enjoy giving to ourselves as much. We don't get as much of a buzz. We enjoy giving and then it reflecting back on us. Like we get our reward after we do something externally. Generally. You Be Wrong Come At Me says, I've been that guy. When I was with a girl and she treated me like shit, I had the understanding that I wouldn't put up with that and left. I hated myself, hated humanity, still left when I got treated like shit. Maybe I'm stupid for throwing away relationships when I was trying to KILL myself over women, but it needed to be solid. Yeah, at least you had that standard, that boundary. He continues, if I couldn't trust the girl, there was no way I was going to work. It was going to work, and I knew that. Yes, if you can't trust them, that's it. Forget it. It doesn't matter what else excuse you make. Oh, but she's got this quality that you don't trust her. What's the point? What is the point? Without trust, you are just opening yourself up. You're saying, yeah, stab me. Do whatever you want. I'm a doormat. Trust is your ability not to be a doormat in an indirect way. Trusting the person doesn't allow you to, they will never wipe their feet on you. But if you don't trust them, you're just hoping they won't. He continues, I do have a sometimes friend that is with an abusive woman because he doesn't think he can do better. This guy is 6'6", almost 400 pounds, drinks soda all day, incredibly intelligent, one of the best network technicians I've ever known, but works in the phone department at Walmart because it's familiar. Yes, that kind of guy wouldn't leave. That is a really potent vision. How many of us are in our comfort zone that is way beneath who we would like to be and should be, and we just put up with it? We stay in shitty jobs with shitty women, and we like that familiarity, and we won't leave because it's comfortable, because something else is a bit more stressful. We convince ourselves it's more stressful, but really it's just more responsibility or a different life than the comfortable, low-level stress you're used to. That's a good lesson. A guy who's got everything to offer, who's 6'6", and he's the best technician he's ever met, but this guy doesn't think much of himself. He works in Walmart, and he'll never leave. And he's with an abusive woman. Don't be an asshole, but don't be a doormat. It's almost like you know they say every pot has a lid. It's almost like you think of yourself as a small pot and you allow big lids to come on top of you. David P says, be careful of what you tolerate. You are teaching people how to treat you. Yes. You keep giving a person a certain stand and they just keep pushing and pushing. And because you don't object, you don't say no. You don't say, no, don't do that. Or this is what I think. I don't like this. I do like this. People just see you as a guy that's, Human's really nice, or Pete's really nice, or David's really nice, because he's so fun to be around. There's never an argument. There's never a disagreement. I like being around them. But secretly, you just stop yourself from disagreeing, and you're walking on eggshells more and more, and you just don't enjoy your life. You're actually embarrassed of your life more and more. Your life fits less and less as time goes on. David continues, value yourself, others will see it and hopefully treat you accordingly. If you let people treat you like crap, that's what you'll get. I agree. That guy, Pete, you refuse to invite to gatherings, says, we pursue what we think we are worth, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. That is really well put. I think so much of this is unconscious, and we just kind of go, this feels good. I've said this before. Are you feeling good, or are you feeling familiar? I'll say that with my big head taking up the whole screen, because maybe it'll be good to remember this. Are we feeling good, or are we just feeling comfortable? Are we feeling familiar? Because we think sometimes, I feel good, because it's familiar. This is good. This is the way women are. That's just the way women... It's like, no, this is familiarity. It could be familiarity from childhood. Maybe your mother treated you like this way, and this is what feels familiar to you with a woman, whereas a nice girl doesn't. Same with women, with bad boys. What was her relationship like with her father? And she doesn't respect you because you might not be as big an a-hole like her father was, even though she didn't like that her father was an a-hole when she was younger. But again, you need to kind of reflect and come to terms with that yourself. You can't... If a person doesn't see it, doesn't feel it, they're just going to like what they like, and you're going to like what you like. Donna says, I see a lot of it in blokes who have grown up in a female-centric family. Yeah, Donna. I've noticed that too. With women I can have conversations with, a lot of them haven't grown up in an all-woman household. They've had a brother or a couple of brothers or a good father. They felt protected by their father, things like that. So, yeah, the more women are in an environment, the more chaotic it is. And not just in your intimate life, just take a look at the statistics. I think that lesbians get divorced at a rate of 3-to-1 compared to gay and hetero couples. I think gays are slightly less than hetero couples in terms of breaking up, but not much, but lesbians are like 3 times more. So what's the statistical lesson here? And yes, I'm being a bit facetious and tongue-in-cheek. The more women are in an environment, the worse and more chaotic it is. So whether it's 1 woman, or 3 women, or 5 women, or a world of lesbians. Not that there's anything wrong with that before anyone accuses me of being a bigot, but, you know, something worth thinking about statistically. Dave D says, it's not that dissimilar to the old misery likes company reason to initiate and stay in a relationship, and millions of couples throughout the world go for that one and stick with it. If you don't like yourself, as I said in this video, if you're sad about yourself, if you beat yourself up, then love to you is familiar when someone's beating you up, complaining at you, nagging you. It's like, oh yeah, I do that to myself subconsciously. Even though you're not consciously verbalizing it, you feel it. It's like, oh yeah, I understand this language. You don't know why it feels familiar or why you might like it. But self-reflection, again, is a wonderful thing if you're not neurotic about it. If you are into self-reflection with the voice of a friend, if you're into self-reflection just to beat yourself up, it's like people finding excuses for the negative. You can find a lot of self-help stuff that will confirm your dysfunction, and you just kind of go further and further into that rabbit hole by intellectualizing your dysfunction. But you must, again, do what you want. If you're masochistic, go for it. But I would say for people that click with my channel and are more inclined to be looking at things the way I am looking at things, my kind of subscriber, is that you don't want to be on the autopilot of how life imprinted and made you, where you're frustrated with it. If you don't feel good being on autopilot, and you need to have a happier life, is when you consciously turn those dials and hold that steering wheel, and you've had evidence when you try and do that in a small way, life gets better, and you know the right thing to do. Do that. Lean in that direction. That's what I'm trying to do all the time. I'm not saying I'm perfect. When I kind of sink back into autopilot, I get all of the stress and the frustrations I had in my past. It's kind of, the software has been in me so long, and some of it is just hardwiring and hardware. So do you want to be happy, or do you want to feel familiar? And a lot of those lines are blurred if you conveniently allow yourself to believe that one is synonymous to the other, because it's not. Buddy Love says, when a guy has low self-esteem and low self-confidence, it shows in his choice of women. He settles for less. Yes. Peg Bell says, I think we can get down on ourselves upon occasion. Those occasions are learning opportunities. Encouragement and support are valued characteristics in a mate. That said, the need for constant help with buoyancy can be taxing for both parties involved. Yeah, when you're both kind of weakly a support group for each other's dysfunction, it's not healthy. It drains you. She continues, it's better that both communicate and are willing to work on themselves and the relationship to right and address the underlying issues. Is it love or unhealthy codependency that perpetuates the enabling? One may have the need for someone as well as the other party has a need to be needed. Both can be unhealthy and reinforce the reoccurrence of the unpleasant cycle, in my opinion. Well put, Peg. Realistic Delinquent says, we are attracted to the kind of suffering we are used to. If you were berated as a youth, you will find comfort in a relationship wherein your partner berates you, as long as she does not cause you suffering by another means. Yes, I agree. If you are familiar and you see love as a certain dynamic because that's what your parents were like, that's how your mum treated you, that's how your father treated you, that familiarity will be synonymous with what love is, because that is kind of like the hardware of what love was for you. You cannot know, you cannot be imprinted in childhood with something and pretend it's not there in adulthood. Don't forget, psychologically, it's been proven that the core of our stable personnel, not our stable, it can be unstable, but I mean, the core of our fundamental characteristic personality is formed under the age of 7 or 8. And with that is your natural reactions to patience, love, anger, where you notice it's different to others. You know, why do I get scared with this where someone else doesn't? Why am I really nervous and scared about this, but they're not? Why do I find it terrifying to talk to women, but my friend Joe here doesn't? You know, a lot of that stuff is like imprinted in childhood. Robert Johnson says, I've always made investments, not sacrifices. That's a really good way to think, Robert. The only objective way to live, to find a partner with qualities that are aligned with my values. At this point, we should have to be she would have to be a cyborg. Yeah, the more you work on yourself, you notice how less and less people out there have worked on themselves or are working on themselves. Heck, as I got older, I'd just take someone who's just working on themselves, even if they have a long way to go, because just so many people are sort of find any convenient Oprah-styled self-help excuse to say that they've worked on their problems when they haven't, when they're just giving you verbal band-aids and making you believe that they're enlightened as a way of coping. Matthew says, we can only view the world how we view ourselves, with our self in the world. When our self in the world, like a cell membrane, we automatically create the correct boundaries and have affinity for the right people. Yeah, you can't pretend to believe in something. If you really don't, you're just going to be on your autopilot of the past. This is where the true work comes in, where when you really believe, like wholeheartedly believe, not just what you want, but who you are. You don't just want to be a better person, but you know you're that person. It's like when you know you love your mother or your father, someone telling you, coming in and intruding and trying to make you disbelieve will make you laugh. It's like, no, I love my father or my mother. It's like, you're stupid. It doesn't affect you. And it's the same with yourself. When your self-belief is very paper thin, when you need post-it notes on your self-esteem to kind of, give yourself mantras every day, like, I believe in myself, I believe in myself, I believe in myself. You need to get to the point of you need to get to the point where you're stoically normalized, where you do believe in yourself without having to remind yourself. You've exercised that muscle to such a point where it's strong into the future, and you don't need to exercise it anymore. And you notice when that muscle starts to atrophy and you exercise it a bit more, just to prop up your self-belief. Maybe life got in the way. But if you have to constantly talk to yourself, if you're constantly watching a lot of entry-level red pill manosphere content, and that's the stuff you watch the most, then realistically you probably have to be honest and you have a long way to go. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, some weeks I feel up here, some weeks I've sank back a bit. But, you want to make sure you haven't sank back to the starting point of where you wanted to change your life. Don't sink back there, because you have a kind of a bravado philosophy of, yeah, I'm past that, when you really haven't. Joe Hurst says, some men do undoubtedly. This leads to poorly lived life. By all means, make sacrifices, but make them for the right people and the right reasons. Yes, it feels good to not to sacrifice, but to give to people. Sacrifice implies like it doesn't imply trading. You're willing to trade. But sacrificing, it's kind of like, yeah, I really don't want to let this go, but I will for you. You don't really want to do that. It should be give and take. Are you willing to give the excess of what doesn't matter because you're just getting more in return? You don't want to you always want to sacrifice something that means very little to you or you don't value anymore, but not something that you really value in high regard because you don't want to lose someone. Christopher Queen says, you cannot reasonably expect a woman to think better of you than you do of yourself. The thing that has to be done is to get out of your own head and unscramble your tangled thinking. Face your dragons and slay them, then build your castle stone by stone. Do things that you can be proud of without reference to validation from the crowd. Surround yourself with people who are even better than you, people who are going places. Grow and get strong in life. Then you won't experience the need for female approval. Then if a woman doesn't respect you, it'll be you who looks at her as if she's the strange one. That is the comment that I really liked about your paragraph. If you really believe in yourself, when someone doesn't believe in you, you kind of look at them really strangely, or you kind of laugh. It's kind of like, and you're not delusional. You have a realistic baseline of where you sit. And he continues, and then you can just brush them off as though they were dust on your sleeve. Yeah. You can't just fake it until you make it in terms of your self-belief. True transcendence comes when you really believe in who you are, where another is unable to rock that foundation. You always slingshot back to your foundation of self-belief. You're not like loosely tethered there with, tissue paper. Thinking Out Loud says, if you have low opinion of yourself, there's a fair chance you'll just give up and stay because nothing really matters anyway. Yeah. It's kind of that nihilism, that black PILL sort of mindset where you don't think much of yourself. I'm just a guy. We're all just going to be buried one day. Life is pointless. You get very technical and academic, very philosophically nihilistic about things, where nothing matters. And then equally, nothing matters. Like, it doesn't matter if a woman treats you badly because all women are like that, and what's the point, and blah, blah, blah. Real Names Not Given says, someone who sees better in you than you see in yourself is perceived as lying or wanting something from you. That's why they leave if you put them on a pedestal. Yeah, if you place someone on a pedestal that really is a wretched person, underneath it, if they don't believe in themselves, they'll think you're lying. This is why part of the compatibility with someone is that they see reality and how they judge themselves and other people and how they dance with life. You see life and yourself and things in a similar way. It doesn't need to be the same exactly, but you see reality and you see yourself dancing with reality by a very similar script and you believe in the same ethics and the same morality by which you conduct yourself in life. You speak similar languages. But yeah, don't get serious with someone who's a very different person to you. That's just a recipe for disaster. The only relationships that last a little bit is for people who aren't self-reflective and they just kind of interact with the world out there. They have kids, they go on holidays, they go shopping. It's about materialism, it's about money. They switch houses, they switch cars. They can't sit still with the person or themselves. Any questions during the stream? Some super chat comments from you guys. Sarcastic Bunny says, having been in that type of relationships once we split, I found that the nothing was actually not so bad. In some ways better. Allowed me to look at myself and change a lot of things. Okay. As long as you're honest about it, you don't want to go back to something where as soon as you even go back on a coffee, you get hit with all the problems you left with. And it's like PTSD. Sometimes we just miss being with someone. The companionships of skin, someone lying on your chest, holding hands, someone to talk to, because this voice in your head is it's not just often a bad voice. It's kind of like, it just doesn't cut it. Oftentimes with me, my relationship with a pen and paper is much better than this one. I like it more. Writing something down or hearing myself speak it is better with a person. But just in my own head, no, I don't find it that comfortable. And it's not that the voice in my head is necessarily bad. Either I've trained it to sort of be more sympathetic, or I've just never had that. I've never kicked myself in that way. But it just doesn't, I know it's not real. What's real is words on paper, my voice coming out of my mouth, another person, lived experience, things like that. Roman says, why do beautiful women feel comfortable around us gay guys? I've got a few theories about that. Hypotheses, like for the technically, like minders like, it's not a theory, human, it's a hypothesis or an opinion. Fair enough. My empirical experience says that I think it's that they don't feel threatened because gay guys aren't going to invade their personal space, their bodies. A lot of camp gay guys exhibit the sort of worst catty parts of women's worst side. And they do like male companionship, but a gay guy is a very, very safe and neutral thing where women can actually be themselves. They don't have to put on the act to be with a guy in the same way a lot of guys don't have to put on an act to be with a girl. When you're heterosexual, because we're so different biologically, there's this kind of formality of trying to get two things that are different to mesh, whereas there's not that friction. Women can be themselves around gay guys, and there's no judgment because they're not trying to impress or get with them. They're not trying. Biology isn't trying to get you together, and so it allows you to be yourself more. Biology is trying to get men and women together who are heterosexual. And I think there's the aesthetic part of the gay lifestyle as well as these high maintenance, neurotic, materialistic women. You know, there's a shopping, there's the gossip. A lot of the personalities coincide between the typical modern woman and the modern gay guy. Those kind of materialistic, catty, gossipy, backstabbing, getting off on pain, pushing off of responsibility. There's a lot of bad feminine traits in both the catty, campy, gay culture, as well as the lowercase feminist kind of catty female culture. So I think a lot of those are bedfellows, and there's a lot of familiarity there. Whereas you got, from what I've seen, the more masculine gay guys, there's very little in common with the modern woman, girl power chick. So yeah, that's just my take on it. So I think there's less to fear, and there's a lot of familiar points that they lock into in terms of topics and subjects and things they're into, and how they want to spend time out there shopping and gossiping and clubbing and partying and stuff. Whereas more masculine guys, they're not into kind of a lot of the childish stuff. Oh yeah, Mr. Highway, you moved to South America. Congratulations, man. I'm tipping you're really liking the refreshing change. Feral Android says, a lot of humans' new content doesn't really apply to me since I'm not looking for relationships, but it helps me process my past relationships. His older stuff is gold. Yeah, that's when I really wanted to, and I really was looking forward to a long break, not just a long break, but indefinite break. I was just real about, I didn't want to be in a relationship anymore. The relationship I was currently in the first couple of years of producing content, I was in a serious relationship, and it was the wrong one. We were very incompatible, and I just knew that, again, my world wasn't in color at all. I wasn't right for this person, and she wasn't right for me. We left a lot unsaid. We were just going through the motions, not talking, and on paper we were a couple, and in front of each other we left a lot of stuff unsaid, but we just figured some of the positives, like having someone there, company, a warm bed, familiarity, not being alone, all that stuff was good enough. And we both didn't treat each other like crap. We were both respectful enough, but there just wasn't that kind of compatibility. And over time, you start complaining about small things. The incompatibility shows itself, even if you're trying to be polite with the incompatibility. The incompatibility thrusts itself into your life by saying, no, I don't care how polite you're being with the incompatibility. It needs to be compatible, or it's just unraveling slowly over time. It's like you can tolerate a person that's really obnoxious for 5 minutes, but try tolerating them for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, living with them. I'm sure many of us have friends that we know we couldn't live with. I think that's what most of us do when we get with an incompatible person that's just nice and decent. And today, especially with the way men and women treat each other, especially the way women hate men, it's like it's hard enough to get a woman that's just nice, let alone adding on top of that the hard part of, oh, you want me to be compatible with her as well? It's hard enough to find someone I can just be around and not stress around. But then if there's no compatibility, it turns to stress later. The little things become big things. And I don't believe guys for giving up. I don't begrudge guys for giving up. It's really out there. It's really hard because as a baseline, women just are taught, and the message out there, they just mistrust guys. Guys are turning up to dates in women's eyes as being guilty until proven innocent. Impress me. Show me that you're 1% of guys out there that I trust are all trash. Women go on dates begrudgingly, thinking that they're much better than you, that they're human beings and you're just like scum. They're royalty and you're a peasant, and you should be grateful. It's not a good way to start. If you can't start as friends and human beings first, if one person has a superiority complex and you yourself, relating to these 2 videos I made, you have an inferiority complex, that is a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for her using someone and abusing them and turning you over for another model, and you feeling like that this is what relationships are. Use and abuse. I get abused and someone else uses me. I'm a peasant, they're royalty. She's a celebrity, I'm her fan. Got to get over that dynamic. Got to get over it. Anyway, how long have we been going at the moment? We have been going for an hour and 20 minutes. Any last questions, guys? Let's wrap up the stream. I don't really want to go for 2 hours. I try and make an hour and a half the limit. An hour, between plus or minus an hour is the sweet spot that I want to aim for. So any last questions? Any last super chats? There are a few super chats that I haven't read out yet. Nerds serve revenge colder. Thank you for becoming a member. I can't speak. What's wrong with me today? Speak slower, human. Anyway, I just want to get through a lot. It's like I don't want to make the stream 2.5 hours long. Thank you for becoming a member. Martial Arts Oriental Medicine, thank you very much for the super chat again, man. You've been a great supporter. He says, thank you, human, and hello to everyone. Wanted to say how much you, TFM Coltane, has given me more report on our special and other deeper aspects we're yet to enter into. I question a lot why I'm here, but good. Yes, always question where you are. Question why you're interested in the topics you're interested in, why you're reading the books you're interested in. Be honest about where you are. Don't convince yourself that you're further ahead than you may not be, but also don't put yourself down that you're further back than you should be, especially with women. So it's kind of that realism of objectively being where you are and aligning your brain with where you are and where you could or want to be. Never put anyone on a pedestal, David says. I agree. I agree. Yeah, I think we need to ban nude HD XYZ. It looks to be like a spam bot. Feral Android says, I wouldn't say I've given up. I have just changed my focus. It seems that in this day, if you don't focus on getting and chasing women, it's similar to giving up. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a good sort of perspective. Just let go of women. You don't have to be anti-women or anti-relationships. Just let go. Don't care about it. I didn't have to fight to let go of skateboarding or building tree houses. I or yo-yoing or whatever, you know, just let go of it. Like, especially if you've got a personality that's very intellectually curious and you think a lot, the tendency is that you fight to overcome. But often the solution for an overthinking brain like myself is to learn to do something you don't normally do, which is just let go, which is effectively the same thing. You let go of stuff instead of cut it out of your life or fight against it, because it fights back. But if you let go of stuff, it doesn't fight you back. It's very hard to do if you've been used to kind of overthinking your way through solutions. But I found with me, an overthinker, a neurotic person, that letting go is the solution rather than fighting to overcome. It's done me wonders. Any last questions, guys? And we'll wrap up the stream. I didn't get to the general comments under the videos this week. I may get to them next week. We'll see. But yeah, I don't want to go for another half an hour. Some really good comments. Keep them coming, guys. If anything, other than you guys having really mature conversations under the type of topics I think are important. Everyday topics that people think are fairly pedestrian, but they're the ones that sort of punch us in the stomach. We think, oh, well, they're elementary, aren't they? Yeah, of course you don't do this. Of course you don't pick these women. Of course when you see this character trait, it's a red flag. But how many of us are too confident in thinking it's the obvious and we let it happen to us? So keep the intelligent mentoring and conversations coming in the comments section. And yeah, thanks for the support. Remember to like and subscribe and join the channel if you feel like it. And I'll see you in the next video, guys. Have a good weekend. And yeah, make sure you're part of the equation in any kind of relationship you're having in your life, whether it's with people or with things. Are you dancing in accord with it? Are you at a job where you're giving 100% and it's barely giving you 1%? You know, is there a fair balance? Because usually if you don't feel good, it's because you're giving more and you're just not getting back what you used to or what you want. Or maybe you've outgrown it, but you're there for familiarity. Are you happy? Are you content? Or are you just feeling familiar? Be honest and start to take steps and talk in ways where you can change that so you can actually feel happy and not familiar. Anyway, have a good weekend, guys. And keep the comments coming. Like, subscribe, all that BS that I really appreciate that the channel does too. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.